Have you ever walked out of a movie theater or, well, switched off your TV and just felt this lingering sense of what if? Like the story took a turn you maybe even enjoyed, but you can't shake the feeling that a single different choice, one tiny variable changed, could have sent the entire narrative spiraling in a completely new and maybe even more fascinating direction? That's the exact feeling I had after watching the absolute chaos fest that is Beekeeper. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. It's a glorious, over-the-top, adrenaline-pumped revenge fantasy where Jason Statham basically declares war on the entire concept of phishing scams and wins by any means necessary, usually involving a lot of bees and explosions. It's brilliant in its own way. But that ending, it leaves you with a certain finality, right? A certain closure. The bad guys are taken care of, the queen is safe, the mission is accomplished. Adam Clay, the ultimate beekeeper, walks away from the flaming wreckage of a data farm, his work done. It's satisfying, it's clean, it's what we expect from this kind of movie. Yet something about it kept nagging at me, because the entire film is built on this incredible premise. This ancient secret society of beekeepers who operate above the law to protect the hive, which is essentially society itself. They're the ultimate guardians. And we see just a glimpse of that world, just a peek into this massive, shadowy organization. And then the movie ends. The hive is safe, but is it really? Or did we just put out one small fire while the entire forest is still primed to burn? The ending we got focuses on the immediate threat. It's a personal vendetta that escalates into a systemic takedown, but it's a takedown of one branch, one rotten part of the tree. What about the roots? What about the other threats to the hive? The movie presents this incredible mythology and then only uses it for one single contained story. It feels almost too small for the world it built. And that's where our what if begins. What if the ending wasn't an ending, but a beginning? What if Adam Clay's actions, his very public and utterly devastating war on a corrupt private military company and a former CIA head, didn't signal the end of his journey, but actually triggered something far, far larger? What if his crusade didn't put the hive back in order, but instead shook the entire beehive so violently that it attracted the attention of forces even more powerful, more secretive, and more dangerous than anything he'd faced before? The original finale gives us a conclusion, a period at the end of a sentence. But what if we replace that period with a question mark? A question mark that opens up a Pandora's box of possibilities, taking the themes of the movie, systemic corruption, the fragility of our digital society, and the price of vigilantism, and pushing them to their absolute logical and terrifying extreme. What if the beekeeper's real work was only just beginning, and his next target was the entire orchard, not just one spoiled apple? That thought alone, the idea that his victory might actually be the catalyst for a much wider, much darker conflict, changes everything about how we view the entire film. It shifts the perspective from a standalone story to a potential chapter one. So to really appreciate where we're going to go with these alternative endings, we have to be crystal clear on where the original film actually left us. Because on the surface, it feels like the most definitive, satisfying conclusion possible, right? Adam Clay, our man of few words and many, many bees, has absolutely scorched the earth of this particular corruption. He started with a personal mission, avenge the death of his kindly old landlady, Eloise, who was victimized by a phishing scam. But as we all know, it's never that simple. That personal mission quickly spiraled into a full-blown war against a private military company, Dashfield, and its terrifyingly well-connected head, Derek Danforth. And the finale is just pure, unadulterated catharsis. We get the big, fiery showdown at the data farm, the very heart of the scam operation. It's a fortress, but to a beekeeper, it's just another hive that needs smoking out. He storms the place, dispatching mercenaries with that brutal, efficient style we love him for, and then the final confrontation with Danforth himself. This isn't just a fight, it's a statement. Danforth, hiding behind his wealth, his mother, the former CIA director, his sense of untouchable privilege, truly believes he's above it all. He's the wasp in the hive thinking he owns the place. And Clay, well, Clay doesn't just kill him, he delivers the ultimate beekeeper justice. He literally ties him up, covers him in the accelerant that funded his entire operation, the stolen money, and then, with that chilling calmness, he ignites it. It's biblical. It's a bonfire of vanity and greed. He doesn't just eliminate the threat, he uses the villain's own weapon, his own ill-gotten gains, as the instrument of his destruction. It's poetic, it's savage, and it feels incredibly just. And then he just walks away. The facility is exploding behind him, a symphony of chaos and fire, and he's strolling out like he's just finished a day's work. Because in a way, he has. The job is done. The Queen, in this case, the actual President of the United States whom Danforth was targeting, is safe. The hive has been stabilized. The final shot we get is of him, a solitary figure disappearing from view, presumably to go back to his actual bees, his duty fulfilled. The system, as flawed as it is, was protected by an outside force, and balance is restored. And that's the key word here, restored. The ending is all about restoration. It's about putting things back the way they were. The immediate violent cancer has been cut out. The status quo, however fragile, has been reinstated. It's a closed loop. The emotional arc is complete. The personal debt has been paid. It's the classic myth of the hero who ventures into the darkness, slays the dragon, and returns home. It's incredibly satisfying on a visceral level because we, the audience, got to see the bad guy get exactly what he deserved in the most spectacular way possible. But here's the thing that starts to itch at your brain after the credits roll, this idea of restoration. Because the movie spent so much time building up this vast, powerful, and deeply sinister infrastructure of corruption. We're talking about a network that goes from low-level scammers all the way to the highest echelons of power with a private army at its disposal. Can you really incinerate one guy and blow up one building and truly believe that you've solved the problem? Or have you just cut the head off a hydra? You've created a power vacuum in a criminal empire that was intertwined with intelligence agencies. Someone is going to step into that void. Another Danforth, maybe even a smarter one, a more careful one. The original ending gives us personal closure, but it deliberately avoids asking the bigger, messier questions about systemic change. It allows us to walk away feeling good without the nagging dread of what comes next. But what if the movie had leaned into that dread? What if Adam Clay's actions didn't restore order, but instead revealed just how deep the rot actually goes? The satisfaction of the original ending is its greatest strength, but that very satisfaction is what makes the alternative possibilities so tantalizingly dark and complex. Because what if the Beekeepers' war wasn't over? What if it had only just begun? All right, so let's dive into our first alternative, and this one picks up at the very moment the original ending seemed to conclude everything. Adam Clay is walking away from the inferno of the data farm, the flames licking the sky behind him. He's done it. He's avenged Eloise. He's taken down Danforth and his entire operation. In his mind, the mission is accomplished. The music would swell and we'd expect credits, but not this time. Instead, as he's walking down that deserted road, maybe even hitching a ride from a passing truck, something subtle happens. His phone buzzes. Not his personal phone, but a different, more secure device. The one tied to the Beekeepers. He ignores it at first, thinking it's just residual chaos from the network he just dismantled. But it buzzes again and again, persistent, urgent. Finally, he answers, expecting a congratulatory message or perhaps a debriefing. But the voice on the other end isn't a fellow beekeeper. It's cold, electronic, disguised, and it delivers a single chilling line. Protocol Hive Mind is activated. Stand by for reevaluation. And just like that, the ground shifts beneath him. Reevaluation? What does that even mean? He's just saved the president. He's protected the hive. He should be getting a medal, not a reprimand. But before he can process it, he sees the news alerts start popping up on a screen in a nearby electronics store. The footage is shocking. It's not showing him as a hero. The narrative is being flipped in real time. The reports are calling the data farm attack a terrorist strike on critical infrastructure, a rogue operation by a former CIA asset gone off the rails. They're showing blurred footage of his brutal methods, painting him as a chaotic, unpredictable threat. Danforth, the victim, the system, attacked. And this is where the genius and the horror of this alternative kicks in. He thought he was working for the ultimate guardians, a force above governments. But what if the beekeepers aren't above the system? What if they are the system, the real system? And his actions, while morally right from his perspective, were messy, unauthorized. They drew too much attention. They exposed methodologies. They created a political nightmare that now needs to be contained. And in the world of shadows and secrets, containment doesn't mean a press conference. It means cleaning up the loose end. And Adam Clay has just become the loosest end of all. So his walk away from the explosion isn't a victory march. It becomes a flight for survival. But not from the usual suspects. Not from the police or the FBI. He's being hunted by his own, the very organization he gave his life to, the people he considered his only family. They know his moves, his tactics, his safe houses. Every skill he used to hunt Danforth is now being used against him. He's not the hunter anymore. He's the prey. And the bees he once commanded could now be turned against him, tracking him, hurting him. This ending completely reframes the entire movie. It's no longer a simple story of revenge. It becomes a tragic Greek drama about a man who, by doing the right thing, inadvertently breaks the unwritten rules of a game he never fully understood. He believed in the myth of the beekeeper, the noble guardian, but the reality is far more cynical. The real hive isn't society. It's the self-perpetuating machine of power and control, and its primary instinct isn't justice, it's self-preservation. And anything that threatens its stability, even a righteous crusader from within, must be excised. It turns the film into a commentary on the nature of whistleblowers, on the price of rocking the boat, even when you're right. The final shot wouldn't be him walking away into freedom, but him looking over his shoulder at a seemingly ordinary car that has been following him for miles, his face etched with the horrifying realization that he can never stop running. He won the battle but lost the war because he never knew who the real enemy was. And that leaves us with a terrifyingly open-ended question. If the Guardians are the real threat, who is left to protect the hive? But what if the opposite is true? What if his actions didn't anger the beekeepers, but instead finally caught the attention of someone even higher up? Someone who saw his potential not as a threat, but as the ultimate weapon? Now, our first alternative was pretty dark, right? The idea that the system you fought for ultimately turns on you. But let's flip the script entirely. What if Adam Clay's very public, very violent crusade didn't get him exiled, but instead got him promoted? What if his actions, which seemed so reckless, were exactly what a higher, even more secretive tier of the beekeepers had been waiting for? Imagine this. The ending plays out identically at first. The data farm is a blazing monument to his vengeance. He walks away covered in ash and soot, the embodiment of righteous fury. He finds a quiet, secluded spot miles away, maybe by a river, finally allowing himself a moment of silence to grieve for Eloise, to process the carnage. He thinks it's over. He believes he's going back to a quiet life, his debt paid. But as he's sitting there, a car approaches, not a black SUV with tinted windows, that's too obvious. It's an ordinary, unassuming sedan. A woman gets out. She's not dressed like a soldier or a spook. She's wearing practical, almost rustic clothing. She looks like she could be a farmer or, well, a beekeeper. She doesn't approach him with hostility. She doesn't even seem armed. She just walks over, sits beside him on the riverbank, and watches the water for a moment. And then she says something completely unexpected. The hive thanks you for your service, but your work has only just begun. This is where the scope of the entire world explodes. She explains that the organization he was a part of, the beekeepers he knew, were just one cell, one layer of a much, much larger organism. They were the worker bees. But his actions, his sheer uncompromising effectiveness in dismantling a deep-rooted corruption that had infected the highest levels, demonstrated a quality they'd been searching for. He wasn't just a guardian, he was a force of nature. He wasn't containing the rot, he was burning it out at the source, consequences be damned. And to them, that isn't a liability, it's the highest qualification. She reveals that there are other threats to the hive, real existential threats, that the worker bee level isn't equipped to handle, threats that require not a scalpel but a wildfire. They don't need a soldier who follows orders, they need a principle of chaos that they can point in the right direction. They need a Queen's Guard, an ultimate enforcer operating on a global scale, with a mandate so broad and terrifying that it would make his previous mission look like a parking violation. This ending transforms Adam Clay from a man seeking personal revenge into a mythic figure. He's not being hunted, he's being anointed. The final scene wouldn't be him running or hiding. It would be him being presented with a new suit, not of armor, but of something even more seamless and advanced. He's given a new identity, not to hide, but to become a ghost. The camera would pull back to show not just this one woman, but a small, diverse group of individuals, the real keepers of the hive from all walks of life, all corners of the globe, looking to him not with fear, but with expectation. He is handed a file, the first file. It contains not a name, but a global network, a systemic disease far worse than Danforth's operation. He opens it, looks at the contents, and then looks up, his eyes no longer filled with grief or anger, but with a cold, terrifying purpose. He is no longer Adam Clay, Avenger. He is the Beekeeper, the ultimate sanction. This alternative is fascinating because it's arguably more hopeful, yet infinitely more terrifying. It suggests that there is a benevolent, if ruthlessly pragmatic, hand guiding things from the shadows, that for every cancer there is an immune response, but it also turns our hero into something less human and more like a natural disaster, a targeted hurricane. He gets the ultimate validation, but at the cost of his own humanity, becoming the very weapon he once wielded temporarily. It promises order, but through absolute terrifying force. And that leaves us with a philosophical dilemma that cuts to the very core of the film's premise. Is that a victory? Or is it the creation of a monster, even if it's our monster? Which of these two paths, becoming the target or becoming the weapon, truly serves the hive? And which one, in the end, is more true to the man we saw at the beginning, who just wanted to keep his bees? So we're left with these three completely different visions: the closed, satisfying loop of the original, the paranoid thriller where the system consumes its hero, and the epic ascension where the hero becomes the system's ultimate weapon. And it's absolutely wild how each one isn't just a different plot point, but a completely different philosophical argument about justice, power, and the individual's role in a broken world. It's like we've been looking at the same set of events through three different philosophical lenses. The original ending is, at its heart, a myth. It's a classic Aristotelian narrative where everything exists to serve the catharsis. The moral universe is neat and tidy. Good deeds are rewarded, evil deeds are punished, and the hero's journey has a clear endpoint. It's comforting because it reinforces order. It tells us that even in a chaotic world, there are forces like the Beekeepers that can step in and set things right. But its philosophical weakness is its simplicity. It doesn't ask the hard questions about the sustainability of that order or the cost of maintaining it. It's a fable. Now contrast that with our first alternative, the one where the Beekeepers turn on him. This isn't a fable, this is a dive straight into Kafka-esque horror. It's a brutal lesson in systems theory. The individual, no matter how powerful or righteous, is ultimately insignificant compared to the self-preserving instinct of the larger system. The hive isn't a society of people, it's the bureaucratic, amoral organism of power itself. This ending argues that true power doesn't care about your morals. Its only morality is its own continued existence. Adam Clay becomes a tragic figure in the purest sense. His greatest strength, his loyalty to the code, becomes the very thing that destroys him because he failed to see that the code was a lie. It's a deeply cynical but terrifyingly realistic take on how institutional power actually operates. And then we have the second alternative, the promotion. And philosophically, this is the most complex one because it sits in this unsettling gray area. It evokes the concept of the Superman or Übermensch from Nietzsche, the individual who creates his own morality beyond good and evil, who is so singular in his purpose that he operates on a plane above conventional society. He's not good or evil, he's a force of nature, a necessary function. This ending suggests that to fight a monstrous system, you might have to become something even more monstrous, but in a controlled, directed way. You sacrifice your humanity to save humanity. It's a utilitarian nightmare dressed up as a hero's journey. The greatest good for the greatest number, but at the absolute cost of the individual soul. And this brings us to the central haunting question that all these endings dance around. What is the true meaning of protecting the hive? Is it about restoring a peaceful status quo, even if that status quo is inherently fragile and corruptible? Is it about understanding that the system itself is the ultimate enemy of the people it's supposed to protect? Or is it about embracing a form of ruthless, transcendent efficiency that operates outside of human morality altogether? The original ending chooses order. The first alternative chooses truth, even if it's a horrifying truth. The second alternative chooses power, raw and untempered. Each ending fundamentally changes who Adam Clay is. In one, he's a hero. In another, he's a victim. In the last, he's a god or a demon. And that's the real genius of playing with these alternatives. It shows us that a character isn't just defined by their actions, but by the world's reaction to those actions. Is he a knight errant, a pawn, or a king? The answer depends entirely on the nature of the chessboard itself. And that makes you wonder, which of these worlds feels most familiar to our own? Which one carries the sharper, more uncomfortable truth about how change really happens and what it truly costs? Because the fiction that resonates deepest is often the one that holds a mirror up to our own reality, even if the reflection is hard to look at. And that leaves us with a final personal question, not about the movie, but about ourselves. And that's the incredible power of a single story, right? How, by just shifting the perspective at the very last moment, we can unlock entirely new universes of meaning. We started with a straightforward action movie ending and ended up wrestling with some of the biggest ideas about power, morality, and our place in the systems we live in. And that's why I love doing this, why I love digging into these narratives with you, because it's never just a movie. It's a playground for our imaginations and a testing ground for our philosophies. But here's the thing, this conversation doesn't have to end with me talking. In fact, the most fascinating part is only just beginning because I am genuinely dying to know where you stand on all of this. Which of these realities resonates with you the most? Did you leave the theater perfectly satisfied with that fiery, conclusive ending, feeling like justice was served and the story was complete? Or does the darker, more paranoid twist of the first alternative feel more real to you, more in line with the way the world actually works? Maybe you're drawn to the epic, almost mythological scale of the second alternative, the idea of a lone hero ascending to become something far greater, for better or worse. Maybe you've got a fourth option brewing in your mind right now, something we haven't even considered. That's the beauty of this. Your idea could be the best one yet. So I'm handing the microphone over to you. Let's get this conversation started. Scroll down to the comments and tell me everything. Which ending feels right to you? Which one would you have chosen if you were in the director's chair? And what other movies have you seen lately that left you with that itching feeling of what if? That feeling that there was another path the story could have taken? Let's build this out together. Your thoughts and your ideas are what make this channel so much fun. It's not just about me sharing my theories. It's about us building this community of storytellers and philosophers, all exploring these narrative possibilities together. So please take a second and share your perspective. That interaction, that back and forth, is literally the best part of my day. And if you enjoyed this dive into the world of Beekeeper and you love pondering the roads not taken in your favorite films, then make sure you're a part of this community going forward. There's so much more to explore. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. We're constantly breaking down new releases and classic films, always asking that simple but powerful question, what if? Your support means everything on this platform. Every like, every share, every comment tells the algorithm that this is a place for curious minds, and it helps us grow and reach more people just like you who love to think deeply about the stories they consume. So if you found this interesting, if it sparked an idea or a debate, please give the video a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching and for spending this time with me, exploring the corners of a story we both clearly love. I'm incredibly grateful for your time and your attention. Remember, the story isn't over when the credits roll, it's over when we stop talking about it. So let's keep the conversation going. I'll be down in the comments reading and responding to as many of your thoughts as I can. Can't wait to see what you've got. Until next time, keep wondering, keep questioning, and keep imagining those alternative endings. See you in the next one.